welcome back. This is the Marketer of the Day podcast. Kristin MacRae is here from KristinMacRae.com. Kristin MacRae is an award-winning organizing and efficiency expert. She's a speaker, she's a columnist, and she's the author of Living an Organized, Energized Life. So we are going to find out what that is all about, how we can tap into Kristin's organizational philosophy, find out about the service she provides, and how we can just have this high energy, stress-free, clutter-free life, do more of the right things, do less of the wrong things. So Kristin, glad to be speaking with you. How the heck are you?
Hi, thanks for having me, Robert. Thanks, I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. And so what are you all about? What is this organizing thing about? What's the service you provide, and how does it stand out? How is it special?
Sure, so I help people get organized in their homes and businesses, help them save time, money, decrease their stress levels, and help them become more efficient and productive. So in the homes, it's anything from closets, kitchens, home offices, anywhere in your home that's causing you stress and that feeling of overwhelm and you just don't feel comfortable in your home. And then in businesses, it's the same thing with the physical organization, getting you organized, but then I take it that step further with time management, email, calendar, to-do lists, and then helping you become more efficient and productive by streamlining your processes and procedures.
Wonderful. So there's the physical organizing of the drawers, the closets, the rooms, and then there's the abstract time organizing of how do I figure out my calendar, the blocks in the day, all those sorts of things. And it's good in general to know that this sort of service exists, because you think about, well, if my house is cluttered, maybe I'll go get like a cleaning crew, but that doesn't really solve the root problem of, well, in my kitchen, and I think, I wonder if we all have this problem, because in my kitchen, I have like some of my my colanders up in this space, and I have another colander down below, and I have bowls, and I have utensils, and the wife and I, we've changed things over the years, but a lot of it is just like things are set in their ways, right? It's like it's in this way for 10 years, 15 years, and it's so hard to reset. And I know that there'll be the awkwardness of when things are different. And so it's like I said, it's good to know that this sort of service exists, but where do people come to you as far as fixing the hurt? Like I threw out all these things about, like for some reason my kitchen comes to mind, but when someone says I need reorganizing of like my office or my home, is there a particular area that's logical to start, or where everyone has an organizing problem?
Everyone has their own areas that are causing them the most stress. So sometimes, most of the time, this week I had a run on kitchens. Everybody wants their kitchen organized this week. I don't know if they're cooking more and they're getting frustrated. So I go into the kitchen and then we empty the entire kitchen, the drawers, the cabinets, just like it was when you first moved in, empty. Because I want to see, now that it's empty, I'm going to talk to you about how are you functioning, what's working, what's not working, when everything's in your cabinets, when those colanders are in different spots. For you to empty everything out and change it up, it's too overwhelming for you, or it might be, I don't know. It might be overwhelming, and it's a big process for you. So when I come in, we empty that space, and I want to talk to you about how you want to function going forward, and it's much easier to do that once we empty everything and declutter, and then look at your empty space and talk about how you want to function. You have a very clear picture of how you want to function when that space is empty.
That's a good insight. And I wonder if it tickles the nostalgia a little bit, because we've been living in this space for all these years, and you think back to when you first moved in, you first brought the boxes, and everything was new and fresh and bare and had all sorts of potential. So I imagine if it's like a new beginning in a way. And then, so then when it comes time to put things in order, like, is it a matter of you using your judgment and looking at what's there? Is there a logical like plan, a system? Like, how do we go from, okay, step one is I live with it, but I hate it. Step two is I take it all out, and now we're starting from scratch. And step three, we kind of put things back. So what's the method to the madness as far as getting everything back in a new right place?
So we look at what you have and what you're keeping. I help you like decide what you're keeping. And then now we see the categories on the counter, and now we see how many drawers we have. And then I say, okay, when you're cooking at the stove, you have 2 drawers, one on either side. Here are some utensils here. How would you grab them? Would you go to the right to grab them? Would you go to the left to grab them? So it's a test to see, okay, think about how you like to grab things. Where before you might have had to go to the other side of the kitchen to grab them, but now you're like, wow, this is great. I have it right here. And it's all about efficiency too. after that, because now I want you to think about how many things, I say this a lot, are you touching before you find what you actually need, or how many things are you pushing out of the way to find what you need. Now in your organized kitchen, you can grab what you need and go about your day, and you're saving little bits of time throughout the week and day and month, and then it turns into hours at the end of the month. It could. Yeah.
Wonderful. And what a concept, right? Of kind of
Yeah.
mapping or noticing, well, when I reach over there, then that's the logical place where that should be. And so
Mm-hmm.
what sorts of resistance comes up when you do this? Because like I get stressed out even just thinking about changing things up. But as I said, like I'm kind of it's just okay, right? And of course it could be better, but then I also love the familiar. It's kind of like what would happen if suddenly you had a new desk in your office or had a new car, you'd be like, oh, well, it's new and it's shiny, but I hate it because I'm used to where things are at. So do people have this sort of mental resistance to you? Do they say, I want to change, but I have trouble getting there?
So usually people, when they call me, they hit their breaking point. They're at the point where they just want help. They've given up. They're too overwhelmed. They're stressed out. They want to change, but they can't get there by themselves. So that's when they call, and they're pretty open to, when I suggest things, they're pretty open to taking those suggestions because they're overwhelmed and they really can't figure it out on their own, or it takes them too long to kind of think about it. So I'm there to guide them. And usually as I guide them, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Didn't know why I didn't do that before. And then I have them work with it for 3 months. Because during those 3 months, you're going to be moving things around, taking things. And when sometimes the system will fail, but nobody goes back to revisit. And so they just work with a broken system. So I like my clients to work with the systems for 3 months that we create and tweak them to make them work better for you if they're not working. Let's switch it up. Maybe that wasn't the right spot for it, but we'll put it here now that you've worked with it for 3 months. So that's how you maintain that organization, by following up on the systems that you create.
That's an important insight, and that so many things in life, we have these false starts,
Yeah.
and then we kind of just live with it or backslide to the way things were just because there was a little bit of difficulty. And so that's great to think about that. You make a change and you deal with it, but then 3 months later, it might be time to debug the system. And it also shines a light a little bit how helpful it is to have someone like yourself who this is what your dedication is, right? This is what your thought process is, because when we all have our lives and all these tasks and our businesses, and then we're trying to add something in addition to it of being reorganized, it can be the breaking point. It can be overwhelming. So by having an outside resource such as yourself to say like, okay, it's been 3 months, we need to change things up, then that can be just another brain on the team to get the problem solved. And so in this day and age of things being remote, things done over Zoom, how do you fit in? Do you only work locally, or if someone's across the world, is it still possible for you to help out remotely?
Yes, of course. So I do work with clients in person in Southwest Florida, but I have virtual clients all over the country, because I can be a coach in the sense that I can give you the project, we can walk through the project, and then I can follow up with you and have you be accountable to me, so that way I know you're following up with these things. It's definitely 100% doable. I still have a lot of clients up north that I'm originally from Rhode Island that I have virtual, and in other areas of the country also that I'm working with. Yes. So it is
And how
possible.
does the time commitment for that sort of thing work? Because sometimes there's, well, we meet, we look at things, we figure out the plan, and we revisit. So what's the time commitment and the timeline to working on these problems?
So is this just virtual you're talking about, or just in person first and then virtual?
Maybe explain in person, then
Okay.
explain virtual.
So
Yeah.
in person, I work in 3 hour increments, because any more than 3 hours, you usually get stressed out, shut down, because I'm holding your focus for 3 hours. There's no distractions. You're just focused on this the whole time. The only time I work longer than 3 hours is when I'm unpacking a home and we want to get the project done. I can work as long as the client needs me to. So, but when it's a focused project like a kitchen or a closet, there's that set amount of time that we work together. And I usually can finish a project within 3 hours. When it's virtual, I start out with an hour consultation, and then I have, for the first week, for the first month, we do a weekly 1 hour session, and then it turns into 1 month session, 1 hour, and then it could be every 2 months or 3 months. It just depends on how much the client needs, how much they need organized in their life, whether it's their time, their calendar, their to-do list, those kind of things too. I can work with that, and it just depends on what the client's needs are.
Okay, well, great. And
Mm-hmm.
so you help people organize, and as far as you like growing your business and getting attention on this and getting clients. What has that journey been like? Were there any roadblocks as far as getting the messaging out or getting these things explained, or is it a matter of they hear what you do, they say, "Oh my gosh, I needed that last month"?
Yeah, so when I started my business 12 years ago. I'll be celebrating 12 years in April. And when I first started, everyone's like, "What's your target audience?" And I'm like, I need to find where the disorganized people are. Because they don't all hang out in the same place usually, right? Where
If they were, they'd be organized. That's the point. They're
exactly.
disorganized people. Yeah.
Exactly. So I had to find, my challenge was marketing to my target audience. Where were they? Where do I find them? But I did join networking groups when I first started. I kind of threw spaghetti at the wall just to see what would stick. I did a lot of that. And then it's just a matter of, someone might not need you now, but they might be moving in 3 months or having a baby or getting divorced or their spouse passed away. And that event comes up and they're like, "Oh, I remember Kristin, I'm going to call her." So it doesn't always happen right away, but you do have those clients that will hit their breaking point and say, "I need you tomorrow. Are you available?" So it's a wide range, but I did have to throw all that spaghetti at the wall initially because I just wanted to see where my market was. I wasn't really sure where they were hanging out and how to get in touch with them. It took me a minute, but I'm starting up in Florida now down here. It was much easier to start my business, and it kind of took off because I knew what not to do, what I did in Rhode Island. So starting in a new area, I knew I didn't want to spend a ton of money on advertising. I knew I needed to join a networking group, but I knew also what I could start with presentations right away, giving presentations. So a lot of things that took me a little bit to build up in Rhode Island, I was able to hit the ground running in Florida.
And there's some sort of a metaphor in there, right? Because we've been saying a few times that sometimes you need to start fresh. And there's a little bit of a paradox there, right? Because when you're starting over in a new location or organizing a new home, whatever the situation is, you are starting over, but then you also have the wisdom from before of what you didn't like and what didn't work, and it kind of, there are some new opportunities to start anew from scratch. And also there's an important business lesson I'm getting from you there, in that if you have a new idea, just go to these networking events and just have these conversations to test out your idea and see what people's initial reactions are and find out what their objections are. And so when kind of you're explaining this, I'm kind of imagining you go into these networking events. A question comes to mind: is there a right time to reorganize a home? Because you might say well, no, there's not a right time, but then you're making me think that when me and my wife had our son, that was a good time to throw out a lot of things and make some room. We were kind of forced to, but then also you're making me think of my mother has lived in the same home for 35 years, and there's been divorce, the kids moved out, multiple older relatives, her parents have died and accumulated stuff. So there's 30 years of layers of history, and it's been a constant work for her. And she's 70 now, and every week she kind of cleans a little bit of her room and has a little bit of a project. But she tells me all the time how discouraged she is because it feels like there's just a mountain of things to clean up. She feels like she'll never finish. So is there a right time to do this? And do you have any advice for someone like my mother who just says when will I ever finish?
It's definitely a process. Especially it doesn't happen overnight with someone who at 70 years old who's accumulated a lifetime of things and life events. It's a process. So she won't get it done overnight. But I always tell people, if you're overwhelmed, do a brain dump. Write down a project list of everything you want to get done. Mark it on your calendar. Be specific about what you're going to work on during that time on your calendar. So that way, when you start that project, you're focused on what you're working on. Set a time limit. Limit your distractions. Don't leave the room you're working in. That's a huge one. She might bounce around, say, "Oh, this needs to go in the kitchen. Let me go in the kitchen." And now she just wasted energy, and she's busy but not productive. So that kind of, you lose focus, and then it depletes your energy while you're working on that project. So there's a lot of things before you get organized, what you need to know to do before you actually jump in your project to prepare you for that project.
And it seems like our brains are really good at self-sabotaging ourselves, right? Even going room to room, the analogy that comes to mind for me is you have a fire and you're trying to put it out with little sprinklers because you're just scattered all over the place. And then, so there's definitely, it seems like there's the actions to take, but there's also the inner game. There's the mind part of it. And
Yes.
I also want to kind of switch gears and talk about that too, because that's interesting. And that's like the ultimate problem is time management and what works for us. And there's only so much hour in a day, and we want to be, like you said, productive but not busy, and get things done and also have momentum. And so as far as the time, the day, the calendar, the time management, what is your philosophy there, and how do we begin to crack that problem?
So you mean when you're getting ready to do your project to prepare? So
Yeah, yeah, and I'm
yeah.
always thinking like I'm like, well, I always run out of time during the day or the week, or
Mhm.
like, do I start early or do I do things later in the afternoon? I'm just sometimes I drive myself crazy just
Just trying
wondering,
to,
just like,
yeah.
is there even a solution?
Yeah, so you look at your calendar. First of all, think about when you work your best. Are you more productive in the morning or at night? Some people don't work well at night. Some people work best in the morning. That's the first thing. Then look at time on your calendar where you have an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours max. 3 hours is the max that you want to work on this. And block it off on your calendar. And then get really specific. Say, okay, to Saturday, March 9th, I'm going to be working in the closet for 3 hours. More specifically, I'm going to be working on my clothes, and jot that down, and then limit those distractions. Don't leave the room you're working in. And the reason I'd say to prepare for this is because you might say, okay, I'm going to start working Saturday for 3 hours at a random time. If you're not specific about the timing and exactly what you're going to do during that time, it's going to be 3 o'clock on a Saturday when you're starting, and you're going to sit there for a half hour wondering, okay, I'm in the closet, but what am I going to do? So you want to prepare ahead of time, be really specific about what you're working on in the closet at 3 o'clock with clothes. So you know at 3 o'clock on Saturday, I'm going right to the clothes and I'm going to start. So that way, you're already ahead of the game. You're not wasting time thinking about what you're going to do during that time.
Right. That way you plan your day around it, and that way you don't waste time making some of these decisions. You make the decision when you plan it. You say, it'll be this time, it'll be this location, I'll be working on that. And that way you just kind of follow the commands from your past self. You follow those orders. And do you ever have any people who say, okay, well, I see my calendar, I scheduled it, but when that 3 p.m. on a Saturday rolled around, I started talking myself out of it. I thought, oh, maybe I should get a cup of coffee first. Maybe I should put it off to a different day, start late. So how do we make sure that we follow through on our plans?
It's that procrastination, right? And I say that, yeah, you procrastinate, but your project's not going to get any easier tomorrow. It's not going to be any more difficult tomorrow. It's going to be the same exact project. How bad do you want it? And when people actually do finish that project, they're like, I should have done this like weeks ago or years ago. Why did I wait so long? It's almost like you have to look forward and imagine yourself in that space, and imagine that beautiful space that you've created and how you're functioning. It's almost like you have to put yourself in the after. So that way you can vision what it's going to be. Because if you don't have that vision, then you're never going to get started. But if you know, I'm going to be so much more productive, I can walk into my space without stress, I'm not going to be overwhelmed anymore, then it'll motivate you to move forward and tackle that project.
Wonderful. So you're saying that we think at first that there's two of us, right? There's the past us that maybe made the plans and the present us that has to do it, but you're saying there's a third, there's future me that says, "Hey, why didn't I do this so many years ago? I feel so good. It's such a good feeling when I look at that closet now. I feel happy instead of sad or stressed or overwhelmed." So we think about that later outcome, that later goal, and we say, okay, I made the plan, and now here's the difficult part is actually doing it, but then look at what's on the other side, and it's not just a chore, it's getting this thing done that I've probably been thinking about it more than it would take just to finally do it, and I need to break through onto the other side and see it and be happy. And so,
Exactly.
what has surprised you about helping people out? Like, it's easy to think like, okay, well, it's like living in a new home, or they can now think, or they're more productive. But have there been any like fun success stories where you think, hey, because I've transformed their space, there's this unexpected benefit?
Yeah, they're just happier. So they light up when their space is done, because first of all, they've been trying so long to do it. They couldn't do it themselves. They bring me in, and then we're working together. It's an energizing experience. And as we're going through the process, you can start to see them getting happier and the stress is being relieved. Like you can literally see it on their face. And then when I leave, it's like they're a different person and they're super excited to be in this new space. And now they want to move forward with other projects, because usually not just one area in the home that's disorganized, it's multiple. So then it's like, all right, let's do the closet next. I can't wait. And it's just like it's just a relief of like that stress and overwhelm, and they just feel so much better. It's just, and they feel healthier in their home, because their home could be making them sick too. Just a little bit of disorganization can bring you down. So it's amazing to see the transformation that goes on, not only with the space, but with my client.
That's interesting that you might be making yourself mentally sick, but also like feeling the physicality of it just
Yeah.
by having to live with this clutter and this mess. And I can't go in that room. I can't go in this closet. It's like the walls are closing in. And so by fixing some of these things, I can see how there can be that forward momentum. And again, I feel like we've all been there here and there in life, but it's important to think back and remember, like when we finally did that garage sale and cleared out the garage, or listed a few things on Craigslist and had some extra walking around money and had extra room to park the car and wanted to tell all of our friends. It's important to tap into those good feelings of the post cleaning. And so how does someone contact you about this? If someone says, hey, well, these are some really great ideas to think about, of cleaning my space, of getting the time management aspect, of getting outside help. And I know that I've wanted to do it for all these years, but I've been stuck in my own thinking, my own limitations. And just like how Tiger Woods has a hypnotist, or how athletes have a coach, like we can't do, personal trainer, nutritionist, we can't do it alone. We need a team. We need that coach to get us there. How does someone know if they're a right fit for you as their undecluttering or decluttering coach, I guess? And if they are a good fit, how do they take that next step and contact you?
Sure. So I always talk to everyone on the phone first, just to get a vibe and see like if we'll work well together. I would form a relationship immediately on the phone with them. So they can contact me at 401-323-1165. Again, I'm based in Southwest Florida. I do travel, but I also work virtually. And then my website, all the information is on my website, KristinMacRae.com, KristinMacRae.com. You can also get my book, Living an Organized, Energized Life. It's available on Amazon, but you can also, everything's on my website and links everywhere. So you can do that. And I'm also available for presentations, and I can do presentations virtually also.
Wonderful. And as we said in the beginning, this needs more attention, because it's not just about you having to clean out your own stuff on your own and maybe just getting even more frustrated than you when you started. It's not just about getting the cleaning crew in and cleaning the baseboards, but get the clutter cleared, reorganize, figure out what you have, figure out what you can get rid of, and get to the other side, so that way you can be happier, you can get the momentum, you can feel better. And by you being a happier and feeling better person, then you change the lives of others, right? Because you'll be a more pleasant person, and you'll have that extra time and energy to do those other things and help out the friends and family in your life. And so this is something that it's really important for our physical health, for our mental health, for our productivity and financial health. So if you've been putting this off for the longest time, and some of the ideas that Kristin said really made you perk up, you need to run, not walk, and go to KristinMacRae.com and just see about solving this. See about making that phone call, having that conversation. If you're more of a book reader, then read that book. And also, as Kristin said, she's also available to speak on this subject, because it's so important. And if we leave this unattended, then everything will accumulate, right? We'll put that in that space. And this is just such a problem in America, right? Where the attic is full, the garage is full, the storage space is full. Well, it's time to get things unfull. We can do that with Kristin's help. And so as we wind down our conversation here, Kristin, does anything come to mind as far as final parting words? Is there a powerful quote or lesson that has really helped you that you think can help us listeners today?
Just think about how much money you're wasting on duplicate items you're purchasing. You can't find what you're looking for, so you go out and buy another one. Everything's so expensive today, so that's the first thing that comes to mind for me. Food is expensive. Everything's expensive. But you're wasting money in your home if you're disorganized, looking for things, buying duplicate items. So you're going to save money. What are you going to do with all that extra money that you have? And then you're going to have more free time spent looking for things. You can't find something when you need it, and you waste half an hour. How much free time will you have at the end of the year if it all adds up, and what will you do with that free time? So just those benefits, two major benefits that will immediately, you'll see the results right there.
Amazing. It is time to clear the waste and to get our time back and to get our life back.
Yes.
And the way to do that, and the next step to do that, is by going to KristinMacRae.com. You'll be glad you did, and you'll be glad that you took this moment, this opportunity right now to make that decision to do something different to then change your life and get those extra benefits afterwards. So, Kristin, it's been wonderful and lovely speaking with you about this.
It's great speaking to you also. Thanks for having me.
Super great. Super.